probably made a mistake by moving the microphone, but before I introduce this afternoon's film, I just wanted to say two things. One, I don't know if the artist Rick Harney is here, but thank you, Rick. I love your sculpture of Roger, and thank you, Donna and Scott Anderson, for making it possible. The other thing is about last night. Um, I had seen Life Itself before, and so, and I had spoken on stage with Steve at the Sundance Film Festival and in Chicago, and I think a few other places. I couldn't always watch the movie each time. I underestimated how affected I would be watching it with you in the Virginia theater, in his hometown, adjoining hometown, Urbana, Champaign. He would say, "I'm from Urbana." Uh, and so I was actually rendered speechless. That's why I was sitting on the stage and I couldn't talk. And I realized when I sat up there, I had to call Nate back, um, because when you're watching a film about Roger Ebert at a film festival that bears his name, with some people who have been coming here for 16 years, you realize that what they see on the screen, the people are so invested in it. And over the years, I've seen really how much you love him and care about him, how much you learn from what he says about the movies. I know the bar is way high for us to meet, and we're going to try to continue to give you a quality film festival. So all of these thoughts are going into my mind. And then when I watched the movie with this crowd, it was the first time I realized just how much we've lost. Because I know it wasn't just a movie. We've lost a real person. Of course, I've lost my husband and my love and my soulmate. And as I said, I truly think Roger was a visionary. I think he was an extraordinary man. Roger was not an ordinary man. And I said it even when he was alive because I recognized something in him, his ability to touch so many people that goes way beyond what most of us experience in a lifetime. And I think that there's some reason, and one day we'll find out the reason, but for many reasons, because he's already had a change in some people's lives, and that's not even an exaggeration. It's not hyperbole. It's fact. It's true. And so last night when I watched it, it was more painful for me than any other time I've seen the movie, even more painful than the first time I saw it. And actually, it sort of sent me right back to the day that he passed away in a way that I didn't think would happen. I thought that I would be able to watch it this time is sort of, like a movie. I knew it was a movie about my husband, but it's almost as if I could feel you because some of you in the audience saw it for the very first time last night, and I could feel people's emotions. The emotions were magnified. The laughter was more laughter than other screenings, it was magnified. The pain and the sadness was deeper and more profound than some of the other screenings. So by the time it was over, I was just speechless and back in grief and pain, but also in a joy that the world had ever known a man like that. And thank you for coming and honoring Roger. The films were chosen not lightly. This is Museum Hours is Roger's kind of movie. One of the things in our, over 20 years of being together that I learned, I used to like listening to him. Even when I disagreed with Roger about a movie, I carefully read what he said. And that's a lesson for even, you can pick any of the film critics. We have a lot of our film critics here from RogerEbert.com, and I hope you get to talk to some of them. Choose one whose writing style you like. You don't have to agree with them. Just choose one and read him consistently or her consistently until you figure out kind of whether your opinion would be, with them or against them, but at least find out their sensibility and figure out how it relates to your sensibility. Because that's what I did with Roger. Even though we agreed probably, 90% of the time, the 10% or 5% of times that we didn't agree, is probably when I learned the most. I would say, okay, I disagree with you about this, but okay, tell me why this was so important to you. And it's and the Museum Hours is a movie that we would both agree about, but I know that this is so much of his sensibility, and you'll see as it unfolds. And I'm glad that we have the filmmaker Jim Cohen with us. Jim Cohen is a New York-based filmmaker with films featured in the collection of New York City's Museum of Modern Art, the Whitney Museum, and on PBS Art and Sundance channels. His feature-length films include Chain, Benjamin Smoke, and Instrument. Cohen's recent projects include the Gravity Hill newsreels about Occupy Wall Street, and we have an Anchor, a portrait of Cape Breton. Will you please help me welcome Jim Cohen?
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out, and thanks so much to Chaz and Nate and all of the people who work on this remarkable festival for bringing me here, bringing the film here. I often debate whether I should say much in an introduction. I won't say a lot, but sometimes I feel like, I've been making films for about 30 years now, and a lot of them are quite under the radar, to say the least, very uncommercial films, and people are always kind of insisting and reminding and sort of, in a way, kind of scornfully saying, well, these films are never going to make it out into the mainstream. They're it's fine that you make them, but they're not for the masses or whatever. And I always found that to be such a disrespectful notion, in terms of this. I've always believed in making films that are kind of about the world that we actually do live in, things that we see out of the window, odd things that we think in our heads, but they're resolutely down to earth, at least to me. And so I think that they're very much for everybody, but that isn't to say it's not a weird movie. So I do, I'll give you a little warning. It's slow, it's quiet. You may not be able to tell what it is. It's kind of a story, it's kind of a documentary. None of that matters. It's your movie now. You make it as you go. You can dream your way through it. You can find bits and pieces of it that you like. You might love the whole thing. I'll be glad to come out afterwards and address any questions and thoughts that you have. Thank you very much.